The first thing my mother-in-law did when I walked into the restaurant was look at my shoes. Not my face. Not my dress. My shoes. She stared at them for 3 long seconds, then slowly looked up at me and smiled. "Oh," she said. That one word was enough to make my stomach tighten. My husband Daniel was standing beside me, holding the restaurant door open. He noticed her expression too. "Mom," he said quietly, "please." She laughed. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. I looked at Daniel. He gave my hand a small squeeze. Let's just enjoy dinner. I wanted to believe him. I really did. Because that night was supposed to be important. Daniel's parents had invited us to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in the city. His father was celebrating a major business deal, and his mother had specifically told me that she wanted everyone together. For the first time since Daniel and I had gotten married, she had actually sounded warm on the phone. "Come early," she had said. "I want to talk to you." I should have known better. My mother-in-law never invited me anywhere because she wanted to talk. She invited me somewhere because she wanted an audience. And that night she had one. By the time we reached the private dining room, 6 people were already seated around the enormous table. Daniel's father. His older sister Victoria. Victoria's husband. 2 of Daniel's father's business partners. And at the head of the table sat Eleanor Hayes, Daniel's mother. Perfect hair. Perfect makeup. Perfect pearl necklace. Perfect smile. She looked at me as if I were something that had accidentally been delivered to the wrong address. Then she looked at Daniel. "Darling," she said, "you didn't tell me she was coming dressed like that." The room went silent. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Mom." I looked down at my dress. It was a simple navy dress. Nothing extravagant. Nothing inappropriate. It was the dress Daniel had bought for me 3 months earlier because he said he loved how I looked in it. Eleanor leaned back. "I'm only saying that this is a formal dinner." I forced a smile. I thought it was fine. Victoria laughed under her breath. "It's fine if you're going to a church fundraiser." Her husband chuckled. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Daniel immediately turned toward them. "That's enough." Eleanor raised one eyebrow. "Oh, Daniel, don't start." I said that's enough. His father cleared his throat. "Let's sit down." We did. And for the first 20 minutes, everything appeared normal. Almost. The food arrived. People talked about business. Victoria complained about a vacation. Her husband bragged about a new car. Daniel's father talked about a merger. I mostly listened. Then Eleanor turned toward me. "So, Emma." "Yes?" "How is that little marketing job going?" I smiled politely. "Pretty well." "Still working from home?" "Yes." She nodded. "That must be convenient." I knew that tone. Very. She took a sip of wine. "I suppose it's nice when you don't have to deal with real corporate pressure." Victoria laughed. Her husband joined her. Daniel looked at his mother. "Mom, Emma has been doing extremely well." I didn't say she wasn't. You implied it. Eleanor shrugged. I asked a question. I tried to calm him down with a glance. It's okay. But Eleanor wasn't finished. She looked around the table. Actually, I was just telling Victoria earlier that young people today don't understand what sacrifice means. Victoria nodded. Absolutely. Eleanor continued. When I was Emma's age, I was already helping build this family. She looked directly at me. Some people marry into a family like ours and think the lifestyle simply comes with the ring. The room became uncomfortable. Daniel put his fork down. Mom? She smiled. I'm speaking generally. No, you're not. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I wanted to disappear. But I didn't. I sat straight. I kept my hands folded in my lap. And I stayed quiet. Because I had spent 2 years learning how to survive Eleanor Hayes. I had learned that arguing with her only gave her more ammunition. She liked reactions. She collected them. Every insult was designed to make you angry. Every accusation was designed to make you defend yourself. And every time you defended yourself, she twisted your words. So I stayed silent. Then she made her biggest mistake. She asked me about my family. Emma, she said casually, how are your parents? I froze. Daniel immediately looked at her. Don't. Eleanor smiled. I was only asking. My father passed away 4 years ago, I said. I know. And my mother lives in Ohio. Yes. She nodded thoughtfully. It's unfortunate that you don't have the same kind of family support Victoria had. Victoria smiled. Eleanor continued. After all, when you're marrying into a family like ours, background matters. Daniel pushed his chair back slightly. Mom, stop. She looked at him. Why are you so defensive? Because you're humiliating my wife. Eleanor laughed. Humiliating? Yes. She looked at me. Are you humiliated, Emma? I didn't answer. She smiled. See? Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I watched her place it on the table. What is that? Daniel asked. Eleanor smiled. Something I thought Emma might find interesting. I looked at the paper. She pushed it toward me. It was a printed email. My email. My stomach dropped. I recognized the subject line immediately. Application, Director of Brand Strategy. Eleanor had printed an email I had sent to a company 6 weeks earlier. It was a confidential job application. I had never told anyone in Daniel's family. Not even Daniel. I looked at her. Where did you get this? She smiled. Your husband left his laptop open. Daniel stared at her. You went through my computer? I saw the email. You had no right. I was concerned. About what? Eleanor looked at me. That she was planning to leave. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wasn't leaving Daniel. Then why apply for another job? Because I wanted to grow professionally. Eleanor laughed. At whose expense? I stared at her. What does that mean? You have a husband with a good income. Why are you chasing positions above your level? Daniel stood. Mom. She held up her hand. No, let her answer. I looked around the table. Nobody was eating anymore. Everyone was watching. Eleanor leaned toward me. Tell them. Tell them what? Tell them why you applied. I took a breath. Because I want a career. She smiled. A career? Yes. And what about Daniel? He has nothing to do with my career. Eleanor shook her head. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Daniel looked at his mother. What were you afraid of? That she doesn't understand what marriage means. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up. But before I could say anything, Daniel stood too. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the table. He simply stood beside me and said 4 words that changed the entire room. That's enough, we're leaving. Eleanor stared at him. Daniel? He picked up his jacket. I said we're leaving. His father looked furious. Sit down. Daniel looked at him. No. That single word stunned everyone. His father had spent his entire life commanding rooms. Employees, executives, business partners, even his children. And Daniel had always obeyed him. Until that night. Daniel turned toward me. Emma, let's go. I grabbed my purse. But Eleanor stood up. You're really going to embarrass your family over this? Daniel looked at her. No, Mom. He paused. You did that yourself. Then he took my hand. And we walked out. But what I didn't know was that Daniel hadn't just stood up to protect me. He had been waiting for that moment. Because he had discovered something about his family that I didn't know. And the next morning, he was going to tell me everything. We barely spoke during the drive home. The city lights passed across the windshield. Daniel kept both hands on the steering wheel. I stared out the window. Finally, I whispered, I'm sorry. He looked at me. For what? For causing problems with your family. His expression changed immediately. Emma, you didn't cause anything. But no. He pulled the car over. I looked at him. He turned toward me. My mother has been doing this for years. I know. No, you don't. His voice was quieter now. You know what she's done to you. You don't know what she's done to everyone. I said nothing. He reached into the center console and pulled out his phone. I need to show you something. He opened a folder. There were screenshots, emails, bank statements, documents. I looked at him. What is all this? Evidence. Of what? My mother. My heart started beating faster. Daniel handed me the phone. The first screenshot was an email between Eleanor and Victoria. The subject line read, Emma, Daniel's future. I read it. My hands started shaking. Eleanor had written, he needs to understand that she's not suitable for this family. If we don't act now, she'll eventually control his decisions. I looked at Daniel. What? He swiped. Another email. Then another. Then a message. Then a recording. I stared at him. How long have you known? 3 months. 3 months? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure how far she'd go. I looked at the documents again. What were you trying to find? The truth. And did you? He nodded. Yes. What truth? Daniel took a deep breath. My parents have been trying to force me into a business arrangement. What kind of arrangement? My father wants me to take over the company. That sounds good. It would be. He paused. If I married the right person. I stared at him. What does that mean? It means my mother has been telling my father that you're a liability. I couldn't speak. Daniel continued. She believes you're after our money. I laughed bitterly. Me? Yes. That is insane. I know. What made her think that? She doesn't need evidence. He looked at me. She only needs a story. That sentence stayed with me. Because it was true. Eleanor had never cared about facts. She cared about appearances. And I had never fit the picture she wanted. I came from a normal family. I had a normal job. I wore simple clothes. I didn't care about expensive cars. I didn't know which wine went with which food. I didn't have wealthy friends. And worst of all, I didn't need her approval. That was what she couldn't forgive. The next morning, Daniel made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table. Neither of us had slept much. He placed a cup in front of me. There's something else. I looked up. What? He sat down. My father is announcing something at the company meeting tomorrow. What? He's naming me president. I blinked. That's huge. Yes. But why are you telling me? Because my mother doesn't want it. Why? Because she wants Victoria's husband to take the position. I stared at him. But he's not even part of the company. Exactly. Daniel smiled sadly. My father knows he's not qualified. Then why would your mother want him? Because she can control him. Everything suddenly made sense. Eleanor didn't care about success. She cared about control. She wanted a son she could manipulate. A daughter she could impress. A daughter-in-law she could intimidate. And Daniel had started becoming impossible to control. Especially after marrying me. I asked, "What are you going to do?" Daniel looked at me. Stand up. I smiled faintly. You already did that. No. He shook his head. Last night, I stood up for you. He leaned closer. Tomorrow, I'm standing up for myself. The next afternoon, Daniel asked me to come to his father's company. I wasn't sure why. Do you want me there? Yes. Your mother will be there. I know. Then why? Because I'm done hiding you. I looked at him. What does that mean? You've spent 2 years feeling like you don't belong in my family. He smiled. You're about to find out that you were never the problem. The company headquarters was enormous. Glass walls, marble floors, employees wearing expensive suits. When we walked through the lobby, people immediately recognized Daniel. Some nodded. Some whispered. But for the first time, I wasn't embarrassed. Daniel held my hand. We walked into the boardroom. His father was already seated. Victoria was there. Her husband was there. And Eleanor. She looked at me. Then at Daniel. Then at our joined hands. Her face hardened. What is she doing here? Daniel answered calmly. She belongs here. His father looked at him. Sit down. Daniel didn't. Instead, he placed a folder on the table. Before you announce the new leadership structure, there's something you need to see. Eleanor stood. Daniel, don't do this. He looked at her. Why? Because you're angry. No. He opened the folder. I'm finally clear. Then he placed the first document on the table. His father picked it up. His expression changed. What is this? Emails. Eleanor went pale. Daniel. His father looked at her. Did you write these? She didn't answer. He opened another page. Then another. The room became silent. Daniel had collected everything. Every conversation. Every attempt to sabotage me. Every private message. Every plan to push him away from me. Then came the final document. A contract. His father looked at it. What is this? Daniel answered, a resignation letter. His father stared at him. What? If you force me to choose between this company and my marriage, I'm choosing my marriage. Eleanor laughed nervously. You wouldn't. Daniel looked at her. Try me. His father slowly stood. Daniel, I've spent my whole life trying to earn your approval. He paused. I don't want it anymore. His father's face changed. Daniel continued. I'll run the company if you trust me. But if running it means allowing Mom to control my marriage, I won't do it. Nobody spoke. Then his father looked at Eleanor. Is this true? She finally broke. You don't understand. His father slammed the contract down. Answer me. She started crying. I was protecting this family. Daniel shook his head. No. He looked at me. You were protecting your control. Eleanor stared at him. For the first time in my life, she had nothing to say. But the story didn't end there. Because 3 days later, something unexpected happened. Daniel's father called me. Alone. He asked me to meet him at a quiet cafe. I almost refused. But I went. He was sitting in the corner when I arrived. He stood. Emma. Mr. Hayes. He smiled. Please, Call me Richard. I sat down. He looked tired. Not angry. Just tired. I owe you an apology. I didn't know what to say. He continued. I believe things about you without ever asking you. I said nothing. I believed my wife's version of events. Why? He looked out the window. Because I trusted her. Then he looked at me. And because I didn't know my son had changed. I smiled slightly. He changed before he met me. Richard shook his head. No. He smiled. He became brave after he met you. That sentence caught me off guard. He reached into his jacket and handed me an envelope. What is this? A proposal. I opened it. It wasn't money. It wasn't a legal document. It was an offer. A position. Director of Brand Strategy. At his company. The same position I had secretly applied for weeks earlier. I looked at him. You knew. Daniel told me. I laughed. I thought you wanted me away from the company. I did. He smiled. Until I saw your work. Inside the envelope was a detailed proposal. Salary. Benefits. Authority. And something I had never expected. My own department. I looked at him. Why? Because my company needs someone who understands people. He paused. And because I think you deserve a seat at the table. I closed the envelope. I need to think about it. Of course. I stood. Then he said, one more thing. I turned. My wife will probably never forgive you. I smiled. I wasn't trying to make her forgive me. Richard nodded. I know. 2 weeks later, Daniel and I moved into a smaller apartment across town. Not because we had to. Because we wanted to. For the first time, we weren't living according to Eleanor's expectations. We chose our own furniture, our own neighborhood, our own restaurant, our own life. I accepted the job. And on my first day, I walked into the company wearing the same navy dress Eleanor had mocked. I had it tailored slightly. Nothing extravagant. Nothing expensive. Just mine. Daniel was waiting for me in the lobby. He smiled. You look beautiful. I laughed. You're biased. Completely. We walked upstairs together. When I entered my new office, there was a small box on the desk. Inside was a handwritten note. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Eleanor. I opened it. There were only 3 words. You won. I stared at the note. Then I smiled. I picked up a pen, turned it over, and wrote 3 words underneath. No, I left. Because that was the truth. I hadn't beaten Eleanor. I hadn't destroyed her. I hadn't taken anything from her. I simply stopped playing her game. And that hurt her more than revenge ever could. Months later, Daniel's father officially handed him control of the company. Victoria's husband left the company. Eleanor stopped attending family dinners. And eventually she stopped calling. For a while I thought that meant she had finally accepted reality. I was wrong. One evening, almost a year after that dinner, Daniel and I were having dinner at home. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. There was silence. Then a familiar voice. Emma. I knew immediately. Eleanor. She breathed slowly. I need to talk to you. About what? My son. I looked at Daniel. He could see my expression. What happened? She hesitated. Daniel is selling part of the company. I frowned. That isn't my decision. He listens to you. I almost laughed. No, Eleanor. He does. He listens to himself. Silence. Then she whispered, I was wrong. I closed my eyes. I never expected those words. Not from her. About what? About you. I looked at Daniel again. He didn't say anything. Eleanor continued. I thought you wanted our money. I never did. I know. I thought you wanted control. I didn't. I know. Her voice cracked. I thought if I made you uncomfortable enough, you'd leave. I didn't answer. But you didn't. No. You made my son stronger. I swallowed. Eleanor? She interrupted. I hated you for that. I stared at the table. And now? She took a long breath. Now I think I owe you an apology. I didn't know what to say. After everything. After the dinner. The insults. The emails. The humiliation. The manipulation. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to hang up. But another part of me realized something. I didn't need revenge anymore. So I said, apology accepted. She began crying. Thank you. I didn't tell her that I had already forgiven her. Because I hadn't. Not completely. But I had stopped carrying the anger. And sometimes that's the closest thing to freedom. I ended the call. Daniel looked at me. What did she want? She apologized. He smiled. Really? Yes. How do you feel? I thought about it. Then I smiled. Free. He reached across the table and took my hand. You know what I remember about that dinner? What? The moment you stood up. I laughed. I thought you stood up. You did too. I shook my head. No, I was about to walk out because I was embarrassed. He squeezed my hand. And I stood up because I was angry. He looked into my eyes. But neither of us understood what was really happening. What? That night wasn't the night my mother lost control. He paused. It was the night we stopped giving it to her. And that was the part one remembered years later. Not the expensive restaurant. Not the cruel comments. Not the people laughing. Not even the moment Daniel stood up. I remembered the moment I realized something important. Someone can make you feel small without actually making you small. Someone can insult your clothes, your job, your family, your background, your dreams. They can make you question whether you belong in the room. But they cannot decide your worth. You decide that. And sometimes the strongest response isn't shouting. It isn't revenge. It isn't proving them wrong. Sometimes the strongest response is simply standing beside the person who loves you, walking away from the people who don't, and building a life so peaceful that their approval no longer matters. Because my mother-in-law thought she was humiliating me that night. She thought she was reminding me of my place. She thought I would leave feeling worthless. But she was wrong. I left that restaurant with something I had never had before. Certainty. Certainty that I didn't need her approval. Certainty that my husband would stand beside me. And certainty that the life I wanted was waiting outside the room where she tried to make me feel like I didn't belong. She thought she had embarrassed me in front of everyone. Instead, she showed everyone exactly who she was. And when my husband stood up beside me and said, "That's enough, we're leaving," he wasn't just walking me out of a restaurant. He was walking us out of a life where someone else decided what we were worth. And we never went back.